MGP प्रोग्राम में बहुत टाइमली चेक होके कॉपीज मिल जाती थी और एक डायरेक्शन मिल जाता था, तो उससे बहुत हेल्प हुई।
Those are the kind of feedbacks which made me like MGP.
MGP प्रोग्राम मैंने जो ज्वाइन किया था ForumIAS में।
ForumIAS main guidance program.
First major benefit of such a test series is that you have a schedule in hand.
तो ये सब बहुत ज़्यादा beneficial था.
I was satisfied with
Forum for IAS.
Also MGP, I think, especially the model answers I found to be.
How many of you are attending the interview for the first time? First time? What about you? Okay, good to know. And others are attending interview for the first time? First experience? Fine. So did you attend the other current affairs class on national issues and IR? All of you? Okay. So today's class is about the current affairs, about the economy. So we will discuss as to how should you approach the interview questions on the Indian economy. That is what we are going to cover. The class would be for 2.5 hours, where we'll try to touch upon almost around 30 to 35 different topics. Okay. So before I start the class, let me just tell you as to how this particular class is structured, the structure of the class. First and foremost, what we'll discuss is what should be your general approach to the interview. When I say general approach to the interview, here we'll see what kind of questions are asked from DAF and how to prepare for such questions from the DAF. That is what we'll cover in the first part. Second, after understanding the general approach, then we'll discuss the approach to Indian economy. And I'll tell you how I will be approaching the questions for Indian economy. Generally, how do you prepare for the mains examination? For preparing for the mains examination, the first thing what you do is you look at the PYQs. Based upon the PYQs, you get to know what kind of questions are being asked. And accordingly, you prepare for those questions. The same approach we are going to follow in this particular class. Let's say I pick up one theme. Let's say agriculture. When I'm going to start the theme of agriculture from the last 3 to 4 years, from the interview transcript, I will show you what kind of questions have been asked from last 3 to 4 years. So I have gone through all the interview transcripts of the students which have been provided to us. Based upon that, I have prepared a list of themes on which repeatedly questions have been asked. Basically, you will get to know in what direction should you prepare for the interview. Based upon that, I will tell you, based upon the analysis of the previous year questions, I will tell you how should you approach the upcoming interview. There, I will tell you as to what kind of questions, topics might become important. And you must understand, this is not a class, this is an interview guidance class, where the idea is not to impart knowledge. Because knowledge though you already have, that is why you have come to this particular stage. So the idea is not to give you knowledge. The idea, number one, is to help you build opinion on some of the most burning issues in India right now. Take for example, with respect to agriculture. I would say one of the most burning issue is with respect to agriculture marketing. So what should be your opinion with respect to agriculture marketing? Should we liberalize agriculture marketing or not? Similarly, he comes from railways. So for you, most probably the questions will be centered around the Indian Railways. Let's say the question about the merger of IRMS and those kind of questions. Or why is railways facing so much of losses? Or questions related to railway budget. So that is... Okay. Optional paper, exactly. And in fact, for you, it's a double whammy because you may get a lot of questions from the Indian agriculture also because you come from an economics optional background, right? So we'll discuss around 30 to 40 topics which might be asked. And because we have a very shortage of time, just 2 to 2.5 hours for the discussion, if at all some topics are pending, what I will do is, for each of those topics, I will give you my detailed response as to how should be your approach or what should be your opinion on some of the major issues. Sure, I'll just speak to the management. We can have for that. Okay. Because we had to have this particular discussion at a very short notice, because we did not anticipate that UPSC would call for the interview so early. Even we did not anticipate it. So that is what we are going to plan. At the same time, those of you who have interview before this year's budget, you may get questions from this year's budget. So to make your journey easier, to make your preparation easier, wherever relevant in my PPTs, I have included important budget-related announcements, or for that matter, important recommendations given by economic survey. Take for example, if I'm discussing agriculture, because of time constraint, I cannot get into the discussions of what are the budget announcements on agriculture, what are the economic survey recommendations on agriculture. I have given that in the PPT. Okay. The same goes with all other topics as well. Fine. So we are going to have a detailed discussion of around 30 to 40 topics. And for other topics, I'll provide the notes from the PPT itself. Okay. So this is the general approach. Okay. Now let's see, how should you approach the interview? To approach for the interview, that is your DAF-based questions. From your DAF, you may get questions related to the place, your graduation or work, or related to your hobbies. Now, with respect to the place, be it the district or the state you belong to, what kind of questions can be asked? Can you see here? These are the kind of questions which can be asked with respect to your place. For example, if you belong to a particular place which is known for a historical thing, then you may get a question on which dynasties ruled that particular place, that state. What is the contribution of freedom struggle of that particular state or that particular district to the overall freedom struggle? Important historical personalities coming from that particular place. Same way, in geography, I have seen these questions repeatedly being asked, like to break the ice initially, to make the interview atmosphere a little more friendly and cordial. They may ask you this kind of question. If I come to your place, which place do you suggest I should visit? Tourist place. So I've seen, especially for the students who are coming from Kerala, they have this kind of curiosity ki if you go to Kerala, which places should you visit? And they might ask you some details about that particular place. So important places to visit. I will share this PPT, not worry. Yeah. It all depends. I think it depends upon the place that you belong to. Which place you belong to? Assam, right? For sure you may get a question on that. Yes. I think here you should not look at whether it is secular or religious. I think the most important thing is, what is that place well known for? So like you said, Kamakya temple, right? I think that's the place which is a place which would come to anyone's mind to begin with. So for sure, questions are likely to be asked. Okay. Then with respect to economy, right? You should know the regional economy, or let's say the local economy. So you may get a question with respect to what specific crop is grown in your district or in your state. Take for example, if someone is coming from Kashmir, they may get a question on saffron cultivation. Or these days, there has been a lot of focus on lavender revolution as well in Kashmir. So they might get a question on lavender as well. Then let's say from Nagpur, it could be orange. So based upon the place you belong to, you may get this. Similarly, some specific problems of your state. Like if I belong to Karnataka, for sure a question might be asked on Belgavi issue, the border dispute between Karnataka and Maharashtra. This kind of state-specific problems. And I have seen this thing that, most of us tend to prepare for what is mentioned in our DAF, for sure. Like most of us will prepare for about history, geography, economy, and specific problems of our own state. But interviewer also knows that you're prepared for it. they also know that you're prepared for it. So a bouncer kind of question could be, for someone who is from South India, they might ask a question about North India and vice versa. I have seen in some of the interview transcript, these kind of questions. Let's say a person from Tamil Nadu, he's asked a question on UP. A person from UP, a person from UP, for him, the question is from Tamil Nadu, vice versa. So just try to know about the other regions as well. Okay. You should not go into a lot of depth because you do not have so much of bandwidth. So you should have a basic understanding about it. Okay. Let's say if you are coming from Tamil Nadu, for example, South India, for sure, especially from Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, a question can be asked with respect to anti-Hindi agitation, which goes on there. So these are the kind of questions which you must be prepared for. From graduation or work, let's say there's a doctor or an engineer. I've seen in so many interview transcript, especially if a person is doctor, the first question they would ask is, you're wasting one seat in the MBBS. You have wasted one seat because you have completed the MBBS at the cost of government subsidy, and now you're trying to get into civil services. Why do you want to get into civil services? Same way, someone is a electronics engineer. They might ask you, you can contribute to the society that way, because these days we are focusing a lot on semiconductor manufacturing. You can contribute in that. Why do you want to get into civil services? That question also. Similarly, if there is significant gap between your graduation and interview, be prepared to handle this kind of question. Why there is so much of gap? What were you doing during this particular gap? So most of us, what we do after the graduation, we might spend 3 to 4 years to prepare for the UPSC. So they might ask you, what were you doing and why did it take you so much long to reach there? So you should have your answer ready for that. Same way, people like you, you're already into civil services. Why do you want to enter into IAS? So these kind of questions. Or with respect to hobbies, you could see here, if you have written the hobby as book, these are the kind of questions you might get. Like books which you have read recently and your favorite character. Because they want to know what kind of person you are based upon the book that you have read and the person and the character which you say as your favorite character. What have you learned from these books? Or if you have mentioned sports, with respect to sports, these are the kind of questions. Especially some people have written, let's say, cricket. So they might ask you this question about, has IPL benefited or adversely affected cricket in India? And why only IPL has become so famous, and why not the other sports leagues like Kabaddi League, the Football League, and so on? So those kind of questions. And if you mention cricket, they might get into some technicalities as well. Like, there's a dusra ball. So what is this dusra kind of bowling? So these kind of questions, I have seen these questions being asked in the interview transcripts. Is that clear? So you should have a detailed response ready for all these questions. So ideally, what you should do is, when you are preparing for interview, from your DAF, just like how you prepare for the mains examination, you will prepare for a list of topics and you have your responses ready. Same way for the interview also, you have to anticipate the nature of questions and be prepared for those questions. And you should ensure that those questions should not appear like a bouncer. Clear? Okay. Now coming to the agriculture. Let's start with the Indian economy. That is the agriculture. Okay. Before I start, let me tell you, when you see the interview, right? Interview, you must understand it's not a test of your knowledge. It's never a test of your knowledge. It's a test of your personality, the way UPSC calls it. So it might so happen that they might ask you some particular factual questions. And let's say if you don't know the answers to those factual questions, sometimes you become too nervous immediately because you don't know the answer. You never know. That might be the way of putting you under pressure and how you respond to that particular pressure. They might want to test that. And I have spoken to so many students in the past. A lot of students came to me after the interview and they told me that interview has not been that great because they could not answer at least 3 to 4 factual questions. But at the end of the day, when they got their interview marks, they're actually among the highest for that year, which clearly goes on to show what really does not matter is the factual questions. What matters is whether you have your opinions ready on most of the questions. So by chance, if you're not being able to, answer the factual questions, do not feel nervous. Be confident and then answer the questions after that. Okay. So with respect to agriculture, who should focus more on agriculture? You can see people who belong to rural areas. Number 2, whose father's profession is agriculture, or they belong to a state which is related to agriculture. Example being Punjab, Haryana, MP, Tamil Nadu, or whose graduation or optional subject is either agriculture or economics. But that does not mean that people who do not have anything to do with this should not prepare for it. They might very well ask you questions also. How much? You should read about it in that case. For sure, they will ask you. Practical aspects, as in like, the ratio at least, NPK ratio. I think it differs from a place to place, because it all depends upon the fertility of the soil. You must have heard of soil health card, where we try to determine which particular nutrient is deficient in the soil. Based upon that, that particular nutrient will be added. So there's no one size fits all approach. Which place you belong to? Okay. Then you can mention that as a challenge probably. But you have to prepare for it because your agriculture is an optional. You have to prepare for it. And tell you all the important topics also. Okay. These are the important questions from the previous year interviews. Please have a look at all of these questions. Take your time. All these are the previous year questions. Has the government succeeded in doubling farmers' income? Then what are the problems with agriculture marketing? And this is often asked, opinion on farm laws. You might think that the farm laws has been done away with, so you might not get a question. In fact, last year interview also, these questions were asked on opinion on the farm laws. Then all these questions, you could see questions about MSP, cooperative farming, evergreen revolution, why people don't prefer to grow millets. Like if you become a district magistrate of a particular district, how will you encourage farmers to give up cultivation of, let's say, rice, wheat, sugarcane, and encourage them to take up other crops? This is another type of question. Your opinion on PM Kisan. So these are the kind of questions which are repeatedly asked in the previous year interview. Look at these questions. Do you find them too difficult or are they easy? What do you think? It is like your main syllabus only. If someone has thoroughly prepared for the mains, right? If someone has thoroughly prepared for agriculture marketing, they can easily answer it. Same way, if someone has prepared thoroughly for, let's say, cooperative farming, collectivization, cooperatives, FPOs, you can easily answer that. Then we can see, why should states like Punjab and Haryana focus on evergreen revolution? All of these are not that difficult. They are actually easy. But what would happen is, in the interview, because you're already under so much of pressure, how logically coherently and in a structured manner, how you answer those points. That is what is important. Because when you're put under pressure, what happens is the points come out, but these points which have come out, they are very, very random. How do you structure them in a proper way so that you speak very confidently to the interview panel? That's what matters. So do not take so much of pressure कि some out of box questions are asked. No out of box questions. Can you see most of this are your easy questions only? Getting it, everyone? And my idea of this class is not to, tell you what answer should you write. My idea of this class is to make you ensure ki how you build opinion, and once you build an opinion, how you should structure your ideas in a logical manner. That is what I'm trying to do here. Okay. So what I have done is I'm going to cover all these topics on agriculture. So I have almost 17 to 18 topics on agriculture. And all these topics, let me tell you, I have taken from two sources. Number one is previous year interview questions. And second, some of the topics which are in news. Like there is this policy in news. Sahakar se Samriddhi. National Cooperation Policy was introduced recently in August 2025. That is why it becomes important. Same way, recently government has introduced a draft policy on agriculture marketing, which was actually opposed by the farmers unions. So on that only I have taken up this. Same way with respect to crop diversification. If you have been following news, just 1 month back, the government has launched the mission for Atmanirbharta in pulses. So that only. Can you see यहाँ पे क्या mentioned है question previous year interview में? Why people don't prefer millets? Why was this asked in previous year interview? Because the year 2023 was declared as International Year of Millets. That is why the question was asked. So this time pulses are more in news, so you may get a question on pulses. And these are the topics for self-study which I have incorporated in the PPT. Digital Agriculture Mission, which I'm very sure you must have prepared for the perspective of mains. Second one is National Mission on Pulses. Fertilizer subsidy. Any idea why is it in news? Why it is important? Fertilizer subsidy. Huh. How many years? Any idea? Yeah, almost. Good. Good. So recently what happened? There was acute shortage of urea in our domestic market. So if you have read the newspapers, there were long queues to purchase the urea bags. And that was in news that there was acute shortage of fertilizer. So that is why this topic becomes important. Same way, Kerala's model of land leasing. It is actually important because in this year's economic survey, they have mentioned about why this model should be replicated all across India. Then some important budget announcements on agriculture. Okay, so let's start with the first question for discussion. Why do you think doubling farmers' income is prerequisite? Prerequisite means necessary. Why is it necessary to become Viksit Bharat by 2047? Yes. Can you prove me in a logical manner, logically, why we should double farmers' income to become Viksit Bharat? Logically. Prove it logically. Agriculture. Okay. But how? How doubling farmers' income will lead to increase in GDP? Logically, how do we prove it? That's my question. That everyone will be able to say that, na? Logically, how do you prove it? How do you convince the interviewer कि yes, this is why we have to double the farmers' income? That is what I want. Okay. That's the same in a more refined manner. Huh. Huh. Okay, fine. I'll take all of your points, but let me tell you a point which you can actually quote in the interview also. How should you prove that doubling farmers' income will lead to Viksit Bharat? I'm trying to establish a direct correlation, straightforward correlation. Especially people who have economics as an optional, right? They have to have this kind of direct linkage. Now, for example, if I could tell you, GDP is calculated as private final consumption expenditure plus gross capital formation plus government final consumption expenditure plus net exports. This is how the GDP is calculated, right? Now, when I say Viksit Bharat, for Viksit Bharat, two things are must. Number one, our GDP size should increase to $30 trillion by 2047. That's the first thing. Second thing is, it should not just increase. At the same time, it should also lead to what the government calls it as Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So two things should happen, right? Now, by doubling farmers' income, how we can increase the GDP size? Let me tell you this thing. Right now, if you see, the income of the farmers is low, like the way most of you have already told me. Because the income is low, these farmers are unable to make investment in the agriculture. Lack of investment. If they don't make investment, what happens to the overall productivity of the agriculture? Productivity of the agriculture will be lower. Not just productivity, what happens to prices which they will get? They'll get low prices. And if you see, because of this, our consumption expenditure will remain low. Because people will have less income, it means they'll purchase less goods and services. Apart from that, if people are poor, there will be low human capital formation, poor education status, poor health status, and those things. If consumption expenditure reduces, investment is lower, productivity is lower, ultimately, where does it feed into? It feeds into lower GDP growth rate. Lower GDP growth rate will further feed into low income level. So, if you double the farmer's income, what all things are going to happen? If you double the farmer's income, because like rightly you said, farmers constitute almost 45% of our workforce. What will happen to our consumption expenditure? This consumption expenditure will increase. If farmers' income increases, two things can happen. If farmers' income increases, number one, can I say farmers will save more amount of money? Savings might increase. Apart from savings, what will happen to investment in agriculture? Investment in agriculture will also increase. Whatever money that we have saved, this money we can divert towards investment to the other sectors like infrastructure. So this will also increase. And last, most important, what you should know is India right now is one of the largest producer of food grains. It is the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables. It is the largest producer of milk. In spite of that, if you look at India's share in the global exports, it is just 2.5%, and India is placed at the 8th rank. So why should we double farmers' income? The reason is very simple, direct correlation. If we double farmers' income, savings will increase. As the savings increase, those savings can be used for investment in other sectors. If farmers' income increases, consumption, expenditure will increase. If our agriculture production increases, what will happen to our exports? Our exports will also increase. So this is a direct correlation as to why we should double the farmers' income. I hope it's clear. This is what I was trying to correlate, direct correlation. Because everyone will say the same thing. We have to increase the income level of the farmers because the farmers constitute 45%. How do you establish a direct correlation? That is what is more important. You have to think like an economic student here. That is what is important. I hope it's clear. In fact, we can use a word. You must have heard of this committee, right? Dalwai panel. He says doubling farmers' income has a intrinsic as well as instrumental role. You can quote this. Doubling farmers' income has a intrinsic and instrumental role. When I say instrumental role, it means doubling farmers' income is a means to achieve some objective. What objective? Viksit Bharat, that objective of increasing the GDP size. Intrinsic means it is a end in itself. Why it is end in itself? Because it will help us promote what? Welfare. Is this part clear? So next time, if this kind of question asks, what you should think like this is, Viksit Bharat means GDP size should increase and inclusive growth should take place. How should GDP increase? Ask yourself. GDP is calculated in this manner. So GDP can increase because by increasing income level, we can touch upon 1, 2, 3 and 4. Fine, everyone? Okay. Look at this. Sometimes the interview panel might also ask you what is India's progress in doubling farmers' income. Anyone knows what is the progress? Even though there is no official report, what is the present status? Have we doubled the farmers' income? That data is updated. 10,000 was last time. Now the data has got updated. Anyone knows what is the status? 1.7 times? Okay. 2 states have been able to double the farmers' income. Good. Which are those 2 states? Bihar and Uttarakhand. But what is the overall status? Okay, let me just tell you the data here. As per the former Agriculture Secretary, there's no official report, but former Agriculture Secretary has written a detailed report on what is the present status of income of the farmers. And let's see to what extent we have been able to achieve this target. If you see, with respect to doubling farmers' income, our target at a national level was by end of 2022, the annual income of the farmers should increase to at least 1,72,000 approximately. This was the overall target. But this was the national level target, understand. Within the national level target, we also had state specific targets. Every state has its own target by keeping the base as 2016. Now what has happened? Out of this 1,72,000, present at a national level, the income of the farmers is rupees 1,30,000, which is 25% lower than the target that we were supposed to achieve. 1,30,000. And with respect to state specific target, because the different states had different target, based upon that, only 2 states could meet the target, which are these 2 states, Bihar and Uttarakhand. These 2 states alone could meet the targets. So this is the present status. They were able to double the farmers' income based upon their per capita income in 2016. They were able to double it. Clear? Hai? And I did try to search as to why only these 2 states could double their farmers' income, but I could not get any official source where it could be said that these 2 states, why they were able to double the farmers' income. But if at all a question is asked, what will you say as to why only these 2 states could double the farmers' income? One obviously is the low base. Good, very good. Then their base was already lower, understand it, right? For Punjab and Haryana, it is more difficult as compared to these states. We don't have a detailed study as to whether lack of APMCs in Bihar has contributed to that. There's no detailed study. But what you could say here is, for example, in Bihar, you could say that some of the initiatives taken by the government has had a benefit. And whenever we talk about agriculture in terms of initiatives, you can talk about initiatives in terms of inputs, productivity, as well as the prices received by the farmers. Okay, that is what you could quote. Livestock rearing, it can be possible. It can also be possible because when we say increasing the income of the farmers, it might not just be the income earned from the farm. It can also be the income from the non-farm sources also, like the rural wages which they might be earning. Even that might also have got contributed to increase in their income. Okay. But when you are writing about, when you are saying about this, just say that there's no official report. But this is, can I guess? And then you can take a guess. Otherwise, don't not say it openly ki ye reasons hai. Ask them, can I guess? Is it because of this? Then only can quote it. Okay. Look at this question. Why does Indian agriculture display a paradoxical situation of record agricultural production and low income trap of the farmers? What should be a response? What do you think? What should be a response? Why is that kind of paradoxical situation in agriculture? Okay. So you'll directly start with storage? That is what I was trying to say. Everyone knows the points, but how do you structure it? That's what matters. Okay, when I ask this question, how many of you could suddenly, within, let's say, 10 seconds, how many points could you recall? At least 4 points. At least 4 points. Anyone more than 5 points? Okay, I'll just tell you how to generate points. It's actually very easy. कैसे सोचना है? I'll just tell you why this is a situation, and then in the interview within 10 to 15 seconds, how you should generate the points. Think of it. When you see paradoxical situation, the reason is very simple. You know, in Indian economy, since 1947, we have followed this trickle-down economics, where we believed that if the GDP increases, automatically the benefit will percolate to the bottom strata of the Indian society. The same trickle-down approach which was followed for Indian economy was followed even in the agriculture sector also, where our perception, our assumption was if the production increases, increase in production will automatically directly transform into increase in what? Income level. Example of which is, think of Green Revolution. In Green Revolution, did we actually focus on increase in the production or increase in the income levels? Production. Our focus was on food security. Our focus was increasing the production of rice and wheat. Our explicit focus was never the increase in income level. We thought increase in income level would be an automatic byproduct of increase in production, which means this trickle-down approach, which has failed for economy, this trickle-down approach has also failed for Indian agriculture. This is the first thing. But why it has failed? That's more important. In agriculture, I'm just going to tell you a framework. In agriculture, if any question is asked, if you're trying to generate points, generally what happens, the points that you generate, right, they will be very, very random. Like he started with storage. You started with low value crops. The best way to think of the points is, remember the Dalwai panel. He says to double the farmer's income, 3 things are very important. 3 things. Number 1, inputs. Second, productivity. Third, prices. So, if I could align my thought with what Dalwai panel has said, I will think of what? Inputs. I will think of productivity. And I will think of the prices. And what I will then do is, there are different agricultural inputs. What are different agricultural inputs, by the way? First, land. Second, water. Third, labor. Seeds. Fertilizers. Capital. Factors of production, land, labor, capital. In terms of productivity, what becomes important is the overall yield. In terms of prices, it is all about what? It is all about the marketing. So now, if a question is asked, why is such a paradoxical situation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Under marketing, at least 3 to 4 points. You already have your 12 points ready. Did you get the point? Everyone? With respect to land, what point can you say? Fragmented land holdings. With respect to water, lack of irrigation. More focus is on rain-fed area. 48% is under rain-fed area. Labor, more of disguised unemployment. What's the problem? Because the output of agriculture is less, but that output is distributed among large chunk of population. Less output, more population. What will happen to per capita income? It will be less. Seeds. We are focused mostly on developing high yielding variety of seeds for rice and wheat. That is how you can generate the points. So if a question is asked like this, you should think like this. Ki, there is a paradoxical situation between the two because we can see the problems in terms of 3 dimensions. These 3 dimensions are inputs, productivity, and marketing. Within inputs, you can say 2 to 3 points. Within productivity, 2 to 3 points. And within prices, 2 to 3 points. That's it. Don't you think this looks much more structured instead of generating some random points? Which one? I did not say production. I said productivity. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. Hmm. So here, when you say the land is fragmented, there are two problems. Can you tell me why land fragmentation is a problem for agriculture? Anyone? Economies of scale is very poor. We cannot have a higher economies of scale. That is one. Mechanization, and mostly if you look at the small and marginal farmers who have less than 1 acre or so, they do not practice commercial farming. They mostly practice the subsistence farming. Is that your question or something else? Huh? Huh? Okay, you mean to say the production is increasing, but this income is not increasing. Why do you think the production is increasing, by the way? When I say production, one second. When I say production, normally when we say production, the production of which commodity is increasing, by the way? And who is contributing to that increase in production? That's more important, right? So when you see the food grain production in India, it has reached a record of 330 million tons. That's a record production. The problem is in that 330 million tons, 75% is rice and wheat. And who are these people who are growing rice and wheat? Who have a larger land holdings. If you see the farmers who have fragmented land holdings, they generally grow crops like pulses, oilseeds, some low value crops. So economies of scale is not there. Had we organized the farmers into, let's say, a kind of FPOs, cooperatives, then probably they could have got the benefit. That is how I'm trying to correlate. Got to know? Okay, good. Huh, you're saying something. It's clear now? Okay, good. Clear है सबको? Fine. Okay, look at this question. If you are a agriculture secretary, quickly on your toes, let me see. If you are an agriculture secretary, what are the 3 broad priority areas that you would choose? Starting with you. Diversification of crops. Okay. Better marketing. Inputs, productivity, and prices. What about you? Okay. Same be applied. Yeah. That same can be applied. Promotion of FPOs. Good. Diversification. Okay. You can quote all of this, but the interviewer might ask you like this. The government is already doing all of this. आप नया क्या कर रहे हो? Do you get the point? When you say crop diversification or agriculture marketing, the entrepreneur might ask, you have been appointed as a the agriculture secretary. The government is already doing this thing. What is the new thing that you're doing? Cross questioning can be asked. So how do you handle that question then? It will become too difficult to answer that questions, right? I hope you're getting this. Like if you say promotion of FPOs. Yeah, that is a good point. Then okay. You is about to say something? Okay, I'll just tell you here. It's a very tricky question, by the way. It's a very tricky question because you could say the same points which I've said, but suddenly if this guy is, ready to poke you, he will for sure ask you questions like, what is a new thing that you're doing? Why are you not thinking out of box? You should show your innovative mindset, right? So try to think of some out of box solutions which might be needed. Some out of box solutions which I might, tell you here. is number one. Have you heard of something called as secondary agriculture? How many of you heard of secondary agriculture? Not heard of something called as secondary agriculture? Okay. This is something which you can use. So I'll just discuss this, okay? Especially in these kind of questions where, you know, if a question is asked like if you're a agriculture secretary or if you're the district magistrate, think out of box. Think of some innovative points. Be prepared for those innovative points. Agar by chance, if you're not having those innovative points, then obviously you should not go blank. Whatever points you have said, the same points you could say. But what are those points? Let me just tell you. One thing that you could say is secondary agriculture, promotion of secondary agriculture. What is secondary agriculture, by the way? Secondary agriculture, basically, I'll just explain to you secondary agriculture. You have to tell me what are its benefits, okay? And what is the significance for agriculture. Secondary agriculture is essentially any rural enterprise. Any rural enterprise. This rural enterprise uses agricultural commodities as inputs. It uses agricultural commodities as inputs, or this one provides various inputs to agriculture. What kind of inputs it could provide? It could provide inputs like seeds, fertilizers. It could provide for credit. It could provide for machines on a rental basis. So what are the different inputs? All of that it can provide for. Okay. What do you think is the benefit of promoting secondary agriculture? सबसे बड़ा benefit क्या है? It strengthens the backward and forward linkages. Very good. Then, okay. I think the most important point that you should think of is, can I say the most important point is it will reduce the problem of disguised unemployment in agriculture. How it will reduce the disguised unemployment? Yes, all the auxiliary activities. Huh. Yeah. Normally, we don't, you are talking about livestock rearing. No. If we don't include that, that's not included here. No, it's not included. So it's basically, it is using agriculture commodities as input, which means what is it essentially? Food processing industry, right? Now imagine if you promote secondary agriculture, people can move from secondary agriculture, if people can move from agriculture to these activities, it will reduce the disguised unemployment. And second, I did tell you key to double farmers' income, 3 things are must. Remember the 3 things? One is we have to reduce the input cost. Second, we must enhance the productivity, and we must ensure that the farmers get a good price. If a local level, if they are able to get seeds, local level they are able to get fertilizers, their input cost might reduce. Good quality seeds, machines on rental basis will help us increase the productivity. Whatever commodities which the farmers are producing, if they directly sell to food processing industry, it will eliminate the middlemen, intermediaries. The price realization for farmers will increase. So it is like you are not only transforming the agriculture sector, you are giving a solution which can transform the entire rural economy on the whole. That is significance of secondary agriculture. This is a point that you could mention. Because very rarely people mention these kind of points. I hope it's clear. And if someone is not knowing about secondary agriculture, out of curiosity, they might ask you also, कि ये क्या है? नया concept, secondary agriculture. Did you get the point, everyone? Second priority, I would say, second most priority. Obviously, there are a number of priorities, right? Like organizing farmers into FPOs, which the government is obviously doing. But suggest something which the government is not doing, right? What is second priority is, when you see the capital, the government's capital, the money which the government is putting into agriculture, government is putting money into agriculture either in the form of subsidies, or government is also making long-term investment in the form of GCF. GCF in agriculture, can you give me some examples of GCF in agriculture? Capital formation in agriculture by the government. Long-term investment, huh? Warehouses, good. Construction of godowns, good. Then construction of irrigation canals. Then the most important one, research and development, or support to farmers for organizing them into FPOs. Even this is a gross capital formation. Okay, now government can spend either on subsidies or GCF. Right now, the biggest problem is government is spending more money on subsidies as compared to gross capital formation. What agriculture sector today needs is not short-term measure like subsidies. It requires more of long-term measure in the form of construction of godowns. Because our post-harvest losses is very high. How much it is? 90,000 crores post-harvest losses. 90. Last time though it was 90 only. Yeah, 90. Ministry of Food Processing Industries has come up with this data. It is 90. Which source you are quoting? I have checked from Ministry of Food Processing. You can just cross-verify once again. Okay. Irrigation. What percentage of area is under irrigation? 52%. So what Indian agriculture needs is more of GCF, less of subsidies. So what should be your answer here? The government should, I would try to rationalize the subsidies and move towards more of gross capital formation. How would you have to say, you have to convince, how would you convince the minister? So you have to be very persuasive. Yeah, it's a political challenge, obviously. So here also, you have to convince the particular minister that in the long run, which one is better. Probably in the short run, this might help, but in the long run, ultimately, it is the GCF. Clear? Apart from that, any other big measure that you can think of? I would say another big measure which I could think of is promotion, agriculture, marketing. Within agriculture marketing, if I could quote, there are obviously a number of reforms which I would be discussing in detail. But one major reform which I would want to quote here is to promote inverse Anyone knows what is this inverse folk to farm strategy? Yes, we have to grow crops. We have to grow crops according to what is a customer or consumer demanding. Right now, which approach we generally follow? Farm to fork. What we do, first we decide what has to be produced. Like rice and wheat has to be produced. Once the rice and wheat is produced, we ensure that this produce reaches the consumer in the most streamlined manner. For that, we try to eliminate the middlemen, intermediaries. But there is a reverse approach. where there's no flow of goods from folk to farm, there is a flow of what? Information. Information is taken from the consumer. This information will help the farmer to take informed decisions. What kind of informed decisions the farmer can take? Farmer can take informed decisions as to what to produce. Second, when to produce. And whom to market. These are the kind of informed decisions the farmer can take. Do we have any system which enables the farmers to take this kind of informed decisions? We do have. The problem is it's not very strengthened. No, ENAM is once again farm to fork. We have what is called as a separate initiative of the government, which is not very successful. It is called as AgMark Net, Agriculture Marketing Net. So there's a website. If you go to that website, AgMark Net, that website will tell us in a specific mandi of India, how much is the prevailing price now. So if I'm a farmer, if I belong to a particular mandi, I can log into this particular website. I can see right now how much price I'm getting for a different crop, based upon which I can take an informed decision. The benefit of that would be we can help promote crop diversification. By promoting crop diversification, we can cater to the increased demand for protein-based foods. The biggest problem which India is facing right now is protein-based inflation. I hope it's clear. Okay. Any doubts in this? India is promoting crop diversification. We'll discuss in that diversification one. Yes, we'll cover that. Yes. We'll come to that. Yes. Yes. When you say about marketing, iske baad, you can obviously tell those points also. Like giving more freedom to the farmers and those things. Step by step, we'll cover that also. Okay. Yeah. I hope yahan tak clear hai? Okay. Look at this. Anyone knows in what way are the farmer-producer companies different from cooperatives? You must have heard about cooperatives and FPCs. What is essentially the difference between the two? In what way are they different? Good. Okay. Then? Okay. Then anyone else? Companies Act, and that is under the cooperative societies. Apart from that, fundamentally, how are they different in terms of their operations and nature of work? Fundamentally, what's the difference? What you said is good. I think it's more of legalities that you said. But in nature of work and scope of work, how are they different? Okay. Look at this, everyone. This is a table which highlights essentially the difference between cooperatives and farmer-producer companies. It is registered under cooperative societies, that is registered under the Companies Act, legality, like the way you said. But can you see the objective of cooperative is what? Single. it has only one single objective, but the objective of farmer producer company is multiple. Example, you must have heard about primary agriculture credit societies. You must have heard of this. What is their objective, by the way? Just to provide credit. Apart from credit, they do not perform any other role. Same way, if I ask you about dairy cooperatives, their role is to focus only on dairy sector. But when I say company, what company does, it is not confined to one single objective. It can perform multiple roles, multiple things it can do all at once. Area of operation of cooperative is restricted. Anyone? Why? Good. Because it is registered under the State Cooperative Society Act. So its area of operation is restricted. Farmer producer company, its area of operation is entire India because it is essentially like a company. Then you could see who can become member of cooperative. Only individuals and other cooperatives can become members. Example, you know how this village cooperatives are arranged in a 3-tier hierarchy. Like village level, you have PACS. These PACS will come together. They form district level, district central cooperative banks. So who are the members of district central cooperative banks? Cooperatives. And these district central cooperative banks come together to form what? State cooperative banks. But farmer producer company, obviously individuals can become members, but apart from individuals, cooperatives can also become members. Plus, can you see? ये क्या है? SHGs and joint liability groups can become members, which is not the case in case of cooperative. So when you must have heard of this government policy to set up 10,000 FPOs, the idea of these FPOs is based upon this. Like we will have a FPO or a farmer producer company of 300 people. And within this FPO, we will have multiple SHGs or joint liability groups. The benefit of which is, if there is an SHG or joint liability group as part of farmer producer company, each of these SHGs and joint liability groups can now have access to what? Credit. Loans. Is that part clear to everyone? So which one do you think is more superior and why? Like the second part, which arrangement is better positioned? कौन सा better है दोनों के बीच में? हाँ? Farmer producer companies, why? It is much better because number one, instead of focusing on one single objective, they can take up multiple objectives. Why is it important to take up multiple objectives? Exactly. If they focus on only one thing, they cannot become more profitable. If they are focusing on multiple activities, they become more profitable because of higher economies of scale. Second, their area of operation is across entire India. Third, the government control in farmer producer companies is limited. Fourth, even SHGs and joint liability groups can also become members of farmer producer companies. Is this part clear? But does it mean we should always go for farmer producer company then? It is good. I understand it is good. But does it mean it is like always you should go for farmer producer companies? They work better at a ground level. I think there is no one size fits all approach that we should follow. Any day farmer producer companies better as compared to cooperatives. But I do think it all depends upon at what scale a particular entity is functioning. If it is functioning at a very limited scale, at a village level, comprising of just, let's say, 15 to 20 people, which one is the best method? Cooperative. Because if you have 15 to 20 people, if you have a company, right? Because it's a company, it has to follow corporate standards. Following corporate standards for 15 to 20 people at a village level, I do think right now, though, it is not possible in India. It's a cooperative, yes. It can be replicated for agriculture, but here, if you ask me, between cooperative and farmer producer company, if you could compare, Amul is a special case. In fact, I know that kind of cross questioning can be asked. If you see the handout, the next question is that only. Yes, yes. So it is not necessary that always all the cooperatives are not very successful. You have Amul, then you must have heard about IFCO. Any idea which is the world's largest cooperative? Surprisingly, it is not Amul. It is IFCO. IFCO is a much bigger cooperative than Amul. And both are actually cooperatives. They are not FPCs. But the thing is, they are exceptional. These two cooperatives are exceptional. That is why they have become so successful. But we'll cover that in the next part. So, यहाँ पे आपका response ये होना चाहिए. Farmer producer company is better as compared to cooperatives because of these 4 reasons. But at the same time, we cannot have one size fits all approach. It all depends upon the economies of scale. For lower economies of scale, for village level 15 to 20 people, cooperatives is better. If we have 300 to 400 people, then farmer producer companies is better. Okay. Now coming to your question. Look at this question. Why? Anyone? Why we did not replicate the cooperative model in the other sectors? Why are they not very successful? For cooperatives, research and development? Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Huh? Yeah. Good. So I'll just tell you why in dairy it is more successful as compared to others. If I could tell you right now across India, we have around 8 lakh cooperatives. 8 lakh cooperatives across India. And these cooperatives as such, their membership is almost like 30 crore people. They are the members of this cooperative. And the strength of the cooperative is they account for 99% of villages in India. And almost around 71% of the households. Within cooperatives, we have different types. Like we have dairy cooperatives, we have sugar cooperatives, we also have marketing cooperatives. You must have heard of this marketing cooperative like NAFED. Have you heard of this? NAFED. Or there is another cooperative for tribal products. I hope you must have heard of this, TriFed. Even TriFed is also a cooperative, right? Or in Karnataka, there is another cooperative called as Hopcoms. Hopcoms is a cooperative which is involved in procurement of fresh fruits and vegetables. It will procure the fresh fruits and vegetables from the farmers who are growing them and then sells the fresh fruits and vegetables through separate outlets called as Hopcoms outlets. So just like how you have mother dairy outlets, Safal outlets, in there are Hopcoms outlets. Okay. So, but the question is, among the different types of cooperatives, why dairy cooperatives have become more successful? That's the question which you have to answer. I would say, within the dairy sector, unlike the crops sector, there is a greater incentive to form a cooperative. Why is there a greater incentive among the dairy farmers to form a cooperative? Number one, in dairy sector, you get daily output. Milk production you get on a day-to-day basis. Second, unlike for crops, where there is a organized place where the farmers can grow and sell the crops, which is what? APMC mandis. For the dairy sector, there is lack of organized market to sell the milk. And third, you must understand milk is essentially a perishable commodity, है ना? Because it's a perishable commodity, the dairy farmers need access to, yes, the milk processing facilities. Imagine we all are dairy farmers. Every day we are producing milk. That milk we have to sell it in the market, but the market is unorganized. That milk cannot be stored for long. We have to process it before we sell it. All these things will automatically compel us, incentivize us to come together to form a cooperative. In case of crops, that incentive is not there. Why it is not there? Crop का production तो daily नहीं होता है. It is once in a year. Second, for selling crops is an organized market, mandis. And crops, unlike milk, can also be stored also. So in case of crop, that incentive is not there. I hope it is clear. Apart from that, in dairy sector, can I also say that government has given a strong institutional support which lacks in other sectors, crop sector. What is that institutional support? NDDB, National Dairy Development Board, which is emerged as a very strong and effective institution. We might have institutions in other sectors also, but they're not as strong and effective because sometimes what also is important is political will. And there was also a strong leadership support to the dairy cooperatives. Who provided this leadership support? And good? No. Yes, someone said this. Yes. Tribhuvan Das Patel. If you have heard about this, his name in the recent time, anyone? The National Cooperative University is named after him only. And this was a person who was the main leading light behind setting up of this Kaira Milk Producers Union, which has now gone on to become Amul. So it's basically a combination of factors which have come together in the dairy sector, which has made the cooperatives more successful. But in other sectors, to a certain extent, we are growing, to a certain extent. One such example, which I can tell you, is, I hope you must have heard of this, Sahyadri. Good. To a certain extent, now we are developing cooperatives in other sectors, which being Sahyadri FPO, or another best example of a cooperative which is into manufacturing is obviously IFCO, which is the world's largest cooperative, much bigger than Amul. Then, any other cooperative that you know of? लिज्जत पापड़. ठीक है? हाँ. You can say that. Because guaranteed MSP will obviously discourage the farmers. You could say that. So that is why we generally don't come across the cooperatives based on rice. We mostly come across cooperatives based on, let's say, pulses or oil seeds or horticulture products. Clear hai? Okay. Look at this. Do you think cooperatives can emerge as a viable third pillar of Indian economy in addition to public and private sector? Third pillar. Does it have the potential? क्या response होना चाहिए आपका? Obviously yes, वो तो बोलना है, but you have to give some counter argument also. Anyone? Stability and why? Good. Okay. So one point he says rightly that they may not emerge as a kind of a viable third pillar because there is heavy politicization. That's the first point. Any other point? Good. Their area of operation is restricted, so they cannot have a higher economies of scale. Then, socho. It is essentially a question about challenges of cooperatives. और कुछ नहीं है. Okay, let me just tell you some points as to what can act as an obstacle, barrier for the cooperative to emerge as a third pillar apart from the public and private sector. There are a lot of cooperatives which are giving a tough competition to private sector actually. Let me tell you. Best example, in milk, we have the Amul, which is giving a unparalleled competition to the private sector. Like in private sector, we have companies like Nestle, Country Delight, and those companies. For those companies, Amul is giving a very tough competition. Similarly, in fertilizer manufacturing, you have IFFCO, which is giving a tough competition, which means with the right kind of ecosystem, with the right kind of support, political will, cooperatives can indeed emerge as a kind of viable, third pillar. But there are some challenges. Number one, like he rightly mentioned, there is heavy politicization of cooperatives. Second, their area of operation is restricted. Third, the nature of operations is also restricted. For example, if you think of Amul, why Amul has become a big brand in itself is because Amul is not just focusing on milk. It has also focused on milk-based products. Same way, IFFCO, if you can think of, IFFCO initially started as a fertilizer cooperative. But from a fertilizer cooperative, now IFFCO has diversified itself into other sectors. Best example is IFFCO has made a foray into the insurance sector. Have you heard of this company? सुना है आपने? IFFCO Tokyo? No one has heard of it? Okay. It's basically an insurance company. So Amul has diversified. IFFCO has also diversified, which clearly shows with expansion of area of operation, with expansion of the cooperative into different sectors, we can have big cooperatives. Not just farmers, they provide vehicle insurance, car insurance. IFFCO Tokyo, they have done a collab. IFFCO and Tokyo, they have a collaboration and they are providing for a lot of insurance. Not just for crop, for vehicle insurance also. Okay. Fourth is they have limited access to capital. Why do they have limited access to capital? Because unlike a company which can go for an IPO, cooperatives cannot go for IPO. They cannot raise capital from the capital market. What step did we take in the recent times to help the cooperatives tap the capital market? Anyone? Good, good, good. What is that? ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए इंटरव्यू में. Good. Anyone knows what step? Have you heard of urban cooperative banks, by the way? For urban cooperative banks, we have set up a umbrella organization. This umbrella organization is a NBFC. It is registered as a company. The members of this umbrella organization is all the urban cooperative banks. All the urban cooperative banks, they have infused capital and they have set up a umbrella organization and they have registered this umbrella organization like a NBFC. Because it's not a cooperative, because it is what? NBFC, it can issue bonds and it can raise capital from the capital market. This is a new initiative that we have taken to help cooperatives raise capital from the capital market. Did you get the point? Okay. Apart from that, there is also lack of cooperation among cooperatives. Lack of cooperation among cooperatives. It is being said there is immense potential which can be reaped by having cooperation between the cooperatives. Example being, let's say there is primary agriculture credit societies. There is a FPO, farmer producer organization. The primary agriculture credit societies, what it can do, it can provide for credit to FPO. FPO, when it produces the crops, FPO can sell these crops to primary agriculture credit societies. This PACS can then act like a procurement center for whom? FCI, Food Corporation of India. If you are able to have this kind of cooperation between cooperatives, FPOs will be successful and even PACS can also be successful. Okay? So these are some of the points that you can write. Apart from these 5, which are most important, you can add other points. Generally, we add some other points like lack of effective regulation of cooperatives, or let's say lack of skilled workforce of the cooperatives. But in mains examination, in interview, do not have so much of scope. If you just remember top 4 to 5, that is most important. That is okay. Okay? Let's see the next one. Look at this. What is White Revolution 2.0 and how is it different from White Revolution 1.0? Yes, anyone? Have you heard of White Revolution 2.0? When was it launched? Okay. But how is it different in approach? Okay, this was launched last year, in November 2024. And if you see the approach of this White Revolution 2.0, it is a little different from White Revolution 1.0. First one, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to expand dairy cooperatives to all the villages in India. That's the first thing. Second, wherever it is possible, we are trying to convert primary agriculture credit societies into multi-purpose societies. So they are going to become in future multi-purpose societies. We are not just going to focus on provision of credit, but they're also focusing on other purposes. One of which will also be working as what? Dairy sector. And third one, is in terms of approach, now we are trying to promote cooperation between the cooperatives. Promote cooperation between the cooperatives. Why did we launch this program, by the way? Because if you see our dairy sector, in dairy sector, we have unorganized sector, that is individual dairy farmers, and organized sector, which is the cooperatives. The share of organized sector is around 34%. Unorganized is 66%. So the main objective of this White Revolution 2.0 is to increase the share of the organized sector in the dairy production. ठीक है? Okay, look at this. Anyone? First one. Do you think repeal of restrictive and outdated APMC acts would enable farmers to realize higher remunerative prices? सोचो. But do you think कि repeal, it's not asking you shortcomings, it is asking you if you repeal, then would we be able to solve the problem? That is the question. So you cannot integrate. Huh? But should we, did you get the question? The question says, should we do away with the APMC mandis? Is that the question? Like some states have done away with the APMC mandis. Which are these states? Which states do not have APMC Act? Bihar does not has APMC Act, and even Kerala also does not has APMC Act. Bihar and Kerala, they don't have APMC Act. So which means they do not have regulated APMC mandis. You know the problems with APMC mandis, right? It is considered to be very restrictive. In this mandi, they are not allowed to sell outside the mandi. It is very restrictive. So should we do with the mandis completely in that case? That is the question. But why? Why should we reform? Why it is needed in the first place is like asking you a question like this. Why do we even need mandis today? That's the question. Good, good, good. They give credit to the farmers. Very good. Good, good. Okay. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you look at APMC, what is ENAM doing? I think that is a mistake which he also committed. What is ENAM doing? Who are these buyers and sellers coming from? ENAM is connecting the physical APMC mandis. ENAM is a digital platform which is only interlinking the physical mandis. So there will be no relevance of ENAM if mandis are not there. Getting it? Okay. Why do we need even mandis now? I will tell you here. Mandis are like the villain in Bollywood movies. They are like necessary evil. Just like a Bollywood movie does not seem interesting, there is no villain. Same way, APMC mandis are considered to be necessary evil. Why? Number one, let's say I'm a farmer. I'm producing some agricultural commodities. After I produce the agricultural commodities, there has to be an organized market where I have to go and sell the agricultural produce. So there has to be a place where I must go and sell. That's the first point. Second, no matter how much ever you criticize mandis are needed for price discovery. That is must. You must understand price discovery. And how does price discovery takes place? Price discovery takes place because mandis bring together the buyers and sellers. The sellers are the farmers. Buyers are the traders. It brings them together, and that is how you discover the price. In absence of mandis, if the market is not organized, it is very difficult to discover the prices. Which one? Don't you think India is not yet ready to completely transition to an online mode? We'll come to that. I'll help you integrate mandis into the online platform also, how it can be done. Okay? Apart from that, mandis also provide number of services to the farmers, like he pointed out. One such service is credit. Apart from providing credit, the mandis also provide for services like storage. They have godowns. Though there are problems there, it does not mean that we should do away with the APMCs. It's like throwing out the baby with the bath water, which is a wrong strategy, right? So what we have to do, rather than doing away with the APMCs, we have to reform the APMC. That is what is more important. समझ में आया? ये आपका stand होना चाहिए. So APMC, why are they needed? Number one, organized market. Second, price discovery. Third, additional services to the farmers. Clear? Okay. Next is, okay, now this is a very controversial question. How should you handle this controversial question? Let's see this. Why were state governments and farmers opposed to farm laws? To what extent were their concerns justified? What I will do quickly in next 3 to 4 minutes, I will briefly give you an overview of farm laws. Based upon that, you should able to gather your thoughts and tell me what concerns were raised by the government and the farmers, and whether we'll cover that. Do not worry. We are going to cover. And what should be there? How were the concerns justified? Okay, here. Now, government came out with the 3 farm laws. As you know, these 3 farm laws were invoked or brought under entry 33 in the concurrent list. You must have heard of this, right? Let's see what is the first farm law. In the first farm law, if you see, right now you have a farmer. This farmer goes and sells the agricultural produce in the APMC mandis. Once he sells the produce in the APMC mandis, the produce is bought by a trader. This trader must have a license compulsorily. And whenever the trader purchases the agricultural produce, the trader is required to pay a mandi fee. On the other hand, the central government said in this particular farm law, now apart from selling it in mandis, you can also sell the produce outside the mandis, where any buyer who has simply a PAN card, this buyer can purchase. And for purchase of this agricultural produce, there is no need to pay the fee. This was the first farm law. Second farm law was about, yes, what was it about? Anyone? You should know these things. It was about contract farming. Third farm law is about, yes? The third farm law was with respect to, yes, amendments to the Essential Commodities Act. Second farm law basically sought to promote contract farming. When you see contract farming, right now, only few states in India have a separate law to promote contract farming. Some of these states include Punjab and Tamil Nadu. Now, central government sought to make a central law to promote and regulate the contract farming. Amendments to the Essential Commodities Act, the government said, we will impose stock holding restrictions only under certain exceptional circumstances. Clear? Okay. Based upon this, what were the concerns of the states? Okay. The government said, right now, you are selling the agriculture produce in the APMC mandis. You continue to sell that produce in the APMC mandis, will not stop you. If you sell in APMC mandis, the trader will purchase from you, that trader will have a license and they will pay the fee. It will continue to be regulated by which act? State APMC Act. But if you sell outside mandi, it will not be regulated by State APMC Act. We will regulate it, Central Act. That is what was this first farm law. Clear? Yes. Yes. What is the concern of the state government? Why were they opposed? One, they thought it will lead to loss of revenue because the farmers were selling it in mandis. So the trader was paying a fee. So they thought it will be loss of revenue. It is especially true for those states where huge amount of agriculture produce is sold in mandis. And the state government earn a lot of revenue from these mandis. Example of that would be Punjab and Haryana. Good. Any other concern? Which one? The Green Revolution states did oppose it. Politically, they might not be opposed to it, but they were having the concerns. All the opposition rule states had a concern. Loss of revenue. Then anything else? Huh? That's what I said. All the opposition rule parties were opposed to it. Politically, obviously, they cannot say it openly. States are not concerned about MSP. The first concern of the state is they were opposed to encroaching upon their legislative domain because state agriculture is a subject placed under the state list. And second, they were concerned about the loss of revenue. Loss of revenue. And if you see, as far as the farmers are concerned, why were the farmers opposed to it? Okay, just pay attention. Let's say I'm a farmer. I'm just thinking out loud. And I'll express my concern. My concerns are like this. Whether they are valid or not, we'll discuss later. I'm just thinking out loud as a farmer. I, as a farmer, until now, I was asked to sell the produce only in the mandis. Now government is saying, apart from mandis, I can sell it outside the mandis also. What might happen is the buyers outside mandis, when they are the people outside the mandis, right? Initially, they can offer a little higher price initially. What might happen over a period of time, if more number of farmers are selling the produce outside mandis, what will happen to mandi system? The mandi system might get dismantled. So, concern number one is they thought that it might lead to dismantling of APMC mandis. Just because the government is giving them a choice to sell it outside the mandis. We'll come to that, whether the concerns are valid or not. You must understand, in APMC mandis, it's very regulated. When you see a trader who gets a license, right, only that particular person can procure, not anyone outsider. So what might happen is outsider may prefer to purchase it from a outside mandi only. Think of a food processing industry. This food processing industry might procure it directly from a farmer rather than through a intermediary. Getting this point? Okay. Second point. Once again, my concern is right now in APMC mandis, FCI, Food Corporation of India, is procuring rice and wheat at MSP. So if I am given a choice to sell it outside the mandi, what might happen is government may stop procuring rice and wheat. MSP might be done away with. Third, I am of a concern that outside mandi, the problem is there could be one single buyer outside mandi. If there is one single buyer outside mandi, we call this market as what? Monopsony market. A big corporate outside the mandi can be a kind of monopsony. And if there is this big corporate, like let's say Reliance or Adani, that can lead to exploitation of the farmers. Fourth one, the government said in case of any disputes outside mandi, if there is a dispute between buyer and seller, I as a farmer cannot approach a ordinary court of law. I cannot go to a court. Who will resolve the dispute? Anyone? District magistrate, SDM, subdivisional magistrate will resolve the dispute. This is the farmers' concerns. Okay, they are, number one, they are of the opinion that if there is an alternative platform which is created, they are of the opinion that slowly the government may prefer not to procure it from the mandis. The reason is, during that time, there was a proposal which was being circulated that open-ended procurement policy might be replaced with what? Close-ended procurement policy. Have you heard of this? For rice and wheat, what procurement policy we follow? Open-ended, no limit. Now there was a proposal which was floated during that time, close-ended. So farmers were linking the two things, and they were of the opinion, if the government shift to close-ended, whatever it is procuring here, it will stop procuring. Second and most important, politically motivated. Who is taking all the benefit here? The most benefit is taken by the middlemen, who are called as artiyas. Food processing industry cannot procure it from a mandi directly. From whom will they procure it? From middlemen, artiyas. Now, if you ask the food processing industries that you can directly procure it from the farmers, whose role will become redundant? Middlemen. Okay. So it has, government also says that to a large extent the protests were funded by these artiyas, middlemen. Okay, now tell me, are their concerns valid? Which of these concerns you think valid? Is it valid? Okay. Okay, let me now think like a central government. So far I thought like a farmer, now I'll think like a central government. I'll just tell you. If I'm a central government, what I'm thinking? I'm just thinking out loud. I'm a central government, I'm saying right now, okay, almost 70 to 75% of the agricultural produce almost 70 to 75% of agriculture produce is already sold outside mandis. When it is sold outside mandis, right now, is the sale of agriculture produce regulated? Right now, it is unregulated. So I will say, or as a central government, I will say, you are already selling it outside mandi. It was not regulated so far. I have just come out with a law to regulate it. Did you get the point? Which is good now. Central government says we are regulating what is already happening. Second, I'll just come. Second point. The central government also says that when you look at different agricultural commodities, which agricultural commodity do you think gets the highest price? It might be allied sector or the agriculture sector. It's not horticulture. Which allied sector product or agriculture product gets the highest price? Yes, what is this? Milk. The farmers get the best price for the milk. The central government says, is there a mandi for milk? Is there a mandi for milk? No. Yet the farmers are getting the best price for milk. Why? Because the farmers are organized into cooperatives. They have better bargaining power. They have better bargaining power. Getting it? Okay. And third, if I'm like a central government, look at what the farmers are saying. Farmers are saying that in outside mandi, there would be one single buyer. This single buyer could exploit them. Understandable. But if the farmer is selling in APMC mandis, are they not exploited then? There, the farmers are saying, I have a choice because there are multiple traders. Whoever is offering me the best price, I can sell the agriculture produce to that particular trader. This is the argument of the farmer. But the problem is all these traders have now formed a cartel. Effectively, number is more, but all them is acting like one single buyer only, na? Because they're a cartel. So they are acting like a cartel. So for them, is there any competition? For traders, is there any competition? There's no competition. If there's an alternative marketing channel, what will happen is the traders will be forced to offer a higher price. That's a different case. We'll come to that. That is related to the contract farming. That's a different case. You raised your hand. Why? I did not get the point. Outside the mandis? No, we need to regulate it because if the farmers are, let's say, exploited, we should know at what price they are selling. We should regulate it, na? Imagine if they are selling outside mandis to any buyer, the buyer procures the products and they don't pay the money on time. Someone has to regulate, na? Best interest of the farmers. Okay? Okay. Yeah, the clear hai? Yeah, much better because they have much bigger bargaining power. Yeah, the clear hai, everyone? So what is your opinion on farm laws now? Good, bad? I've given you both the sides. I became a farmer, gave you farmer's perspective. I became a central government, I gave you central government's perspective. What do you think? They should have been given a chance. They should have been given a chance. Or? Good? Yes, I think that's much better. I think that's much better. I think the much better argument here is farm laws. Obviously, there were some flaws in the farm laws. I don't say that it was perfect. Like if I could pinpoint one major flaw in the farm law is the weak dispute redressal mechanism, which I would agree with. But it does not mean the entire farm law was bad. The farm law was good. But the problem was the way the government brought the farm law. The government brought the farm law without much consultation with the respective stakeholders. You know what happens is, if you look at the present government, whenever the government brings any kind of major reform, first it drives home the point as to why it has launched a scheme. That's the first thing the government does. Jan Dhan Yojana, before it was launched, we made the people understand why they should have a bank account. When we launched Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, we made people first understand what is the importance of the girl child. In case of farm law, without making the people understand its importance, we brought the farm law through an ordinance. When we brought the farm law through an ordinance, there was no discussion, there was no debate. And lack of information coming forth by the government in turn led to a lot of rumors. You know, you always know this key. Bad information will always drive the good information because the good information is not in good amount. So a lot of rumors were being circulated ki this thing is happening with the farm law, this thing is happening with the farm law. Clear? Huh. Yeah. We'll discuss ki what reforms we have to bring about. Next part, we'll cover all of that. Okay? So I hope you understood the debate on farm laws, everyone. Okay. How can the government reconcile the tension between excessive regulation and excessive liberalization in agriculture marketing to protect the farmers' interest and ensure fair and remunerative prices? If you see, it is being said, government is moving from one extreme to another extreme. Like on one hand, government puts excessive regulation with respect to marketing of agriculture produce. Best example of that is your state APMC Act. There is another extreme. Another extreme here is with respect to the Central Act. This Central Act gave complete freedom to the farmers to sell their agriculture produce outside the mandis. So from one extreme, we move to another extreme. Both extremes are equally bad. So we need to find a right balance. How do we have a right balance? That is what we will be discussing. But anyone, how to have a right balance? Or in a way, how do you know, this farm laws को कैसे address करेंगे आप? On one hand, we must protect the interests of the farmers. At the same time, we must give more freedom to the farmers also. But that becomes too liberalized, na? When you say let the market decide, it becomes too much liberalization. One, I take it, better dispute redressal mechanism. One is very good. Apart from that, Sochu, we have covered that in the class. Reforms in the overall marketing. Think of that. What are the other reforms in the marketing that you can think of? Okay. Ek taraf, what we should do, we should regulate. But at the same time, we must ensure that it is not over-regulation. At the same time, we must liberalize. But at the same time, we must ensure that that liberalization is not leading to exploitation. How do you balance both the two things? Number one, it is said you should give freedom to farmers to sell their produce wherever they want. They can sell it in APMC mandis. They can even sell it in private mandis outside the APMC mandis. They should be allowed to sell it on ENAM platform, or if needed to hedge their risk, they must also be able to sell their agriculture produce on commodity exchanges. You must have heard about MCX, Multi-Commodity Exchange, or National Commodity Derivative Exchange, NCDEX. So we must give freedom. Can I say here, what are we taking care of? Liberalization. But at the same time, when we are giving that liberalization, we must ensure that the farmers are protected. उसके लिए क्या करना है? It might so happen that the farmers are selling the produce in any of these cases, they might get exploited. So उसके लिए we have to enhance the bargaining power of the farmers. And how do you do that? Yes. And how do you protect their interest? Obviously, bargaining power is there. Then, I hope you must have heard about commercial courts, right? Similar to commercial courts, we must set up farmer courts at a district level. Farmer courts at the district level. So on one side, we are liberalizing, while on the other side, we are regulating also. Clear with this? So right now, the problem is, in most of the states, the farmers have only one option of selling it in mandis. Give them more choice. Wherever they're getting the highest price, there they should be able to sell it. But while selling in a particular part also, if they're getting exploited, to enhance their bargaining power, organize them into FPOs. Any other way to which I think for an individual farmer, the best example is you give that choice to an individual farmer ki where you want to sell a particular commodity. So depending upon where he is getting the best price, he will be able to sell it wherever he wants. That's the best way. So first, सबसे पहले तो awareness बढ़ाना चाहिए, right? That's the first point. First, सबसे पहले तो awareness बढ़ाना चाहिए. That's the first thing. Second thing, what you could also say is, most of the farmers in India, like the way you're talking about, small farmers, they tend to sell their agriculture produce in the villages itself. They don't go to mandis to sell it. So what can happen is, in the villages itself, these godowns that we have, these godowns must be declared as the sub-market yards. Sub-market yards means they are like a mandi only, where the procurement can take place. So that way the farmer need not travel a longer distance to sell the produce. He can sell it in the villages itself. Okay? We have to regulate the commissions, which we have been doing it also. Recently, Punjab government has reduced that fee. Good. Good, good. There is something called as a proposal of having this agri-market index. You must have heard of ease of doing business index. Similar to that ease of doing business index, a proposal has been put forward that we need to have an index to rank different states in terms of how easy it is for a farmer to sell their commodities. It promotes that kind of competitive federalism among the states. And does that buyer it's very difficult. In that case, I think there has to be an economies of scale. When there's economies of scale, only then you can have a bargaining power. That's a problem. When a small and marginal farmer is trying to sell their agriculture produce, the marketable surplus is less. So whatever price the buyer is quoting at that particular price, only they have to sell it. You don't have a bargaining power. Are they going the same crops? If they're going the same crops, the best way is to have an FPO, aggregate that surplus, and then sell that surplus as a whole. That's the best way. Okay. Is everyone clear with this? Okay. Okay, look at this one. The government faces a paradoxical situation. A paradoxical situation of protecting consumers from high food prices while ensuring farmers receive remunerative returns. How should the government handle this paradoxical situation? You got the question? Yes. क्या करना चाहिए? On one hand, we would want that the food price should be lower because it will benefit the consumers. But if the food price becomes lower, whom will it affect? The farmers. So how do you balance the interest? Huh? Focus on exports, good. Higher? Okay, then? Correct. I think he's giving the best price. You know what happens in India? The consumer is paying higher price, but the farmer is getting the lower price. This kind of paradoxical situation happens because between the farmers and the end consumer, there are a lot of intermediaries. You eliminate the intermediaries. It is beneficial for the consumer because the consumer will pay less price. It is beneficial for the farmer because the price realization for the farmer will also be higher. So the best way is to streamline the agriculture supply chain. I hope it's clear to everyone. Okay. Apart from that, something else also I want to say. Think there is a inflation. During inflation, the prices will increase. So this will have a different effect on the consumers and the farmers. If the prices increase, it is good for the farmers, but bad for the consumers. This is very clear, right? So, you know, if the government wants to protect the consumer interest, what should the government do to the prices? The government should reduce the prices. Generally, to reduce the prices, what actions the government take? Huh? No. Huh? One is obviously it will release the buffer stock. Yes. It will release the buffer stock. That's the first step. Second step is it will put a ban on exports. It will put a ban on exports. Or the third one is it will facilitate more imports. That's what usually the government does. And mostly it is observed that between the interests of consumer and farmer, the government usually takes an action for the benefit of the consumer. Unfortunately, what happens in India is, think of it, in case of production of agricultural commodities, if the production of agricultural commodities increase, the farmer does not get benefit in India. Why he does not get benefit if the production increases? Yes, if the production increases, the prices will drop. On the other hand, if production decreases, what will happen to prices? Prices will increase. But ideally, when prices increase, the farmers should get benefited. But even in this case, also the farmer is not getting benefited because of these actions. Clear? क्या करना चाहिए? Think of it. Huh? Think of it. Very concrete solutions. क्या करना चाहिए? The hint for you is the headline inflation increases in India. What is headline inflation? CPI headline inflation increases, which also compels the RBI to take some actions. क्या करना चाहिए फिर? There's some proposal? Or good. Adjust the food component in the CPI, or I think you may have heard about this, that instead of targeting the headline inflation, there has been a proposal that we must start targeting what? Core inflation. Automatically, if you're targeting core inflation, the need for the RBI or the government to bring down the rate of inflation repeatedly will not arise. That's the first thing. That's the most important step. In fact, this is a recommendation given by Economic Survey also. Getting this? This is the first point. Second, what else should we do? Generally, it is observed that even if a small price rise takes place, even a small price rise, immediately the government will swing into action and takes these corrective steps. It means government intervention in the market should be only in certain exceptional circumstances, not as a routine. So intervention should be only in the exceptional circumstances. ठीक है? Okay. Everyone second now? Okay. Look at this question. Anyone? Huh. That is the first step what you have to write. I mean, like, first step that you have to say, ki if you want the consumers to pay low price and farmers to get good price, the best thing is we have to streamline the supply chain. For streamlining the supply chain, we have to reduce the middlemen, intermediaries. We have to reduce the post-harvest losses. Secondly, government generally intervenes in the market in the case of inflation, which even RBI will also intervene. So best course of action is, instead of targeting CPI, start targeting core. Which one? But the need for the government to intervene, at least the farmer will get better. I'm saying you'll ensure the farmer is still getting the benefit, right? The need for the RBI or the government to intervene automatically reduces. To a certain extent, the farmer is able to get good price. We are not discussing from the perspective of consumer. We are discussing from the perspective of the farmer, ki how should farmer get a good price? Crop diversification, other things. Okay. Look at this question. Do you think MSP has outlived its utility and must be phased out? In what way we should reorient the MSP to address the current challenges? Anyone? It must be diversified towards other crops. Have we done that? Which? PM Asha is there. Good. But is it effective for those 22 crops? Okay, I'll just quickly tell you how to answer this question. What government does is government declares MSP. MSP will give a kind of price assurance to the farmer. That price assurance will lead to increase in production. As the production increases, when the farmers produce the crops, the farmers will have two options. Option number one, they can go and sell it to FCI. Option number two, they can sell it to the traders. When they sell it to the traders must pay a price which is more than the MSP. Because of which, we can expect that the farmer will get a good price. So this cycle should ideally continue. Now the question is, should we phase out the MSP because it has outlived? Okay, why was MSP introduced, by the way? For which crops? Predominantly. It was predominantly introduced to boost the production of rice and wheat in 1960s. Now, rice and wheat accounts for 75% of the total food grain production. We have already achieved substantial amount of production. From a problem of scarcity, we have moved to the next problem of surplus. So some people say that MSP has fulfilled its purpose. It has no longer any utility. It might not be having utility for rice and wheat, but it might have a utility for other crops. Example, can MSP still be used to provide price assurance to the farmers? Best example which I can give you is there is one particular oil seed whose area under cultivation has drastically reduced in the last 10 years. Not soybean. Something much more important. It was a question asked in previous year prelims. This Niger seed in last year, it has seen a highest ever increase in MSP. Did you get the point? Can I say that MSP is still a better tool to provide a kind of price signal to the farmer? Okay, this is a crop that you can grow. Apart from that, what has happened is UP government has started declaring a MSP separately for maize. Similarly, maize. In Kerala, anyone knows what Kerala has done with respect to MSP? Kerala has decided to announce MSP for two crops, that is fruits and vegetables. Punjab. Okay. So these are some of the examples. Punjab will discuss later. Next. Okay. Is this part clear? Now, because of this, what is happening? We can expect an increase in production. Apart from increase in production, if you see FCI is now undertaking more procurement of a particular crop for which India has a huge import dependence. Any idea which crop has India more import dependence apart from oil seeds? I'll tell you a fact which might surprise you. The procurement of pulses in India has increased by 7,350% in the last decade. Look at the number. अभी बताओ, MSP का कोई फायदा नहीं है? MSP still has a lot of value, right? And when you say why MSP has a value, you should talk about these things. How MSP as a tool can be used to promote cultivation of oil seeds, the cultivation of pulses, and hence ensure Atmanirbharta. How MSP can be used to promote state-specific crops like maize in UP, or how MSP can be to promote crop diversification towards fruits and vegetables. These are some of the solid points that you can quote. 7,350%. Uh-huh. How it happened? Because we are now implementing a scheme called as PM Asha. You must have heard of this. PM Asha provides for physical procurement of pulses and oil seeds. And that is why we have drastically increased our procurement, basically to reduce the import dependence. Is this part clear to everyone? Okay. Okay, look at this question. Why do you think India has not been able to create one nation, one market, despite the success of ENAM? I'll tell you one. Okay, I'll just tell you one point here. On what is ENAM, by the way? ENAM is basically a platform which links all the APMC mandis. On ENAM, 3 types of trade take place. One is intra-mandi trade. Intra-mandi trade means the farmer and trader, where are they based in? They are based in the same mandi. Or another type of trade which can take place is inter-mandi trade, which is belonging to the same state. And third one is interstate trade. Recently, I guess in August or July, a lot of articles were published saying that out of the total value of agriculture produce sold on ENAM, the interstate trade accounts for less than 1%. Less than 1%. Why it is so low? One obviously is very logical, right? Logistic cost is high. If I want to procure the agriculture commodities from another state, the cost of transportation will be higher. So I would prefer to procure it from within a same state. Good. Apart from that. Okay. Please pay attention. This is interesting. Let's say this is the state of Karnataka and this is the state of Maharashtra. So what these two states have done is they have declared the entire state as a trade area. What is the meaning of saying that entire state is a trade area? It means if I am a farmer in Karnataka, I can sell my agriculture produce anywhere across the state. For me, the entire area of marketing is Karnataka state. In Maharashtra also, the entire state is one trade area. But the problem here is, if I am a farmer from Karnataka selling the agriculture produce to a trader in Maharashtra, what kind of trade should take place? Interstate trade. Ideally, what should happen is, the state of Karnataka should recognize the trading license issued by which state? Maharashtra. A farmer from Maharashtra is selling the agriculture produce in Karnataka. It means Karnataka government should recognize the trading license issued by Maharashtra. Ideally, what should happen is, there has to be a kind of MOU, Memorandum of Understanding between the states, to recognize the trading license of each other. Very few states have entered into such kind of MOUs. I hope it's clear now. So what should we do? One, obviously, to encourage the states to enter into MOUs. That is one. Apart from that, any revolutionary idea can you think of? Single, one nation, one nation, one license. But if you want to do that, it is quite impossible for us to do that, because agriculture is a subject placed under the state list. So क्या करना चाहिए फिर? A revolutionary idea given forth by Dalwai panel. He says, declare agriculture marketing as a part of concurrent list. Did you get the point? Declare agriculture marketing as part of which list? Concurrent list. And he says, if you declare agriculture marketing as a concurrent list, it will allow the central government to play a more proactive role. Not just that, he says at a national level, we must have something called as Agriculture Marketing Council. Do we have a similar councils right now to promote center-state coordination? Which council? Interstate council hai, or for more important for economics, we have GST council. If we can have a GST council, why not Agriculture Marketing Council? Getting it? This can give a huge fillip to the agriculture marketing reforms in India. I know it's very controversial decision. States will obviously not agree to it. It is not politically feasible. But if you are required to give an opinion, you can say that this is one of the recommendations given by Dalwai panel. You can say that. You can say that. But this is what will happen is, this is something which you are giving on your own. Cross questioning will arise. Here you are giving a recommendation given by a particular government appointed committee. So cross questioning might be less because you're not quoting your own opinion, you're quoting the opinion of a particular government appointed committee. Yahan tak clear hai? Okay. We'll discuss that part later. Look at this question. Does India's resistance to opening its agriculture markets to US reinforces its image as tariff king? Yes, anyone? Trump calls India as a tariff king, right? And India is quite reluctant to, open up India's agriculture markets to US. Okay, good. Good. I think he has a very good point. What he's trying to say, it is unfair to compare the Indian farmers with the US farmers because normally in India, the land is quite fragmented. The farmers are quite poor. Whereas in US, the farmers are they have much bigger land holdings. They have got more machines. So they can easily export more commodities to India as compared to India exporting more commodities to US. So that is a good point. But I'll tell you another important point. It's with respect to this thing, tariff king. Okay, here, let's see whether Trump is right or wrong when he says India as a tariff king. This can also be a question asked in the context of reciprocal tariffs. Okay, let's see what is this tariff king. If you look at our customs duty structure, the structure of our custom duties, right? It is being said that on most of the products, our custom duty is actually low on most of the products. But only on 4 to 5 products, this is as per a think tank called as GTRI. Anyone heard of this? Yes. According to this think tank, they have carried out a research ki what is the custom duty structure in India. They say on majority of the products, the custom duty is low. Only on 4 to 5 products, the custom duty in India is more than 100%. And these products basically include alcoholic beverages, it includes cars, it includes bikes, and to a certain extent, agriculture commodities like dairy products. So the custom duty is very high on these products. Now, when Trump says India is a tariff king, the problem with his statement is Where is he concentrating when he calls India as a tariff king? He is concentrating on only these 4 to 5 products. He is actually ignoring a fact that on most of the product, the custom duty is low. And if you know about WTO, right? WTO has a differentiated custom duty. What is US? US is a developed country. Because it's a developed country, the custom duty will be lower. India is a developing country, the custom duty is obviously higher. Only on few products, the custom duty is higher. On most of the products, the custom duty is lower. So Trump is concentrating here and not here. And let's see what US is doing. When he says India is a tariff king, if you think of US, in US, on dairy products, the custom duty is 180%. On tobacco in US, the custom duty is 130%. So don't you think it's like a double standard of US? They have higher custom duty, but they are asking us to reduce custom duty. It's a hypocrisy, right? So what should be the India's stand on the issue? This is what you have to say. Number one, what he said is it is unfair to compare Indian farmers with the US farmers. Second point is if US can protect its interest, India has its right to protect its own interest as well. Over a period of time, we might open up, but as of now, we are very clear, we will not open up the agriculture sector. Okay? Are we done, everyone? Just look at all the questions on agriculture. I think we must have covered almost. Okay, there are some questions. I'll give you a handout on that. Okay, you can see here, what I've done, I've just incorporated all the budget announcements and other things. I'll share this with you. Okay. Let's go to the manufacturing. Whatever questions are there, I'll just, I have let this space deliberately blank. Why? Because I'll add my response and share it with you. It will be shared either tonight or tomorrow morning. My response, whatever we discuss, I'll just give pointers on it. Just go to that particular pointers. I hope it is okay. Everyone? Okay. Let's see this. Manufacturing. Please see the questions on manufacturing. On manufacturing, 2 types of questions. One is conceptual questions and the other one is opinion-based questions. With respect to conceptual questions, look at one question. What do you mean by Atmanirbhar Bharat? It's a very easy question. क्या बोलना चाहिए Atmanirbhar Bharat? Huh? It is becoming self-reliant. But how is it different from import substitution policy which was followed during Nehruvian era? You got my question? That is also Atmanirbhar Bharat only, na? You're just rebranding that. Yeah, one good point. Yes, then? Huh. Okay. If thought import, can I say like this? Ki import substitution was more of a close-ended policy. Like we are not open to the globalization. But Atmanirbhar is becoming self-dependent based upon integration with the global economy. Approach is different. Okay, we'll discuss that. Okay, you're saying something? Okay, which was mostly earlier limited to only some basic and heavy industries. Okay. And look at this initiative to promote indigenization of defense sector. This is something which is repeatedly asked. Opinion-based question. Decoupling from China, is it possible? or prominence of local manufacturing. For example, someone is from Surat, they'll ask this question. These kind of local manufacturing. Based upon this, these are the questions that we are going to cover. Let's start with the first one. Okay, let's see the first question. In last 10 years, since the launch of Make in India, the share of manufacturing sector has remained stagnant. Does it mean Make in India is a failure? Can you see यहाँ पे क्या है? Is Make in India failure? It's a previous interview question. Yes. What should be a response to such a question? Good. It's a mix of some results. Some sectors we have done good. In some sectors we are still lagging. Mobile manufacturing we have taken a leap. Any other sector where we are? Pharmaceuticals, good. Then chemicals. Toys, I think India has become Atmanirbhar. Engineering goods, because they constitute 25% of our exports, good. Yeah. It's a low value addition. It's a low value addition. We'll cover that. Okay. So when I say concerns, exactly. So it's like when you take a question, right? It is like answering a critically analyze Make in India in your mains. If you get an answer in your mains, critically analyze Make in India, what will you write? Ki Make in India has some success, Make in India has some challenges, and finally what we should do. That's it. That should be a response. Answer, easy hai, which you have already prepared for your mains. The same thing, you have to structure it like this. In the success, challenges, and a way forward. If I could tell you success, like what all success you have highlighted, those things you could highlight. But one point you can add, which is quite important, in terms of contribution to GVA, yes, it is stagnant. But if you look at absolute value of manufacturing output, absolute value, it has actually almost doubled, almost. Like in 2015, at the time of Make in India, the manufacturing output was somewhere around 15 lakh crore. Now, the manufacturing output is around 27 lakh crore. So, it has increased from 15 lakh crore to 27. So, that way, if you see, in terms of absolute value, it has increased. But that absolute value, if you compare that as percentage of GDP, it has remained stagnant. So don't you think it's wrong way to compare or assess the performance of Make in India purely in terms of contribution to GVA? We can also see the success of Make in India in terms of absolute value. I think that should be a first response. Hai na? And then you should say what are the achievements of Make in India. And then the challenges that you already know of. But way forward क्या होना चाहिए manufacturing का? Anyone? Semiconductors, critical industries, semiconductors, or okay, something else. I was looking for something interesting. Recently, Niti Aayog, if you get time, recently just I think 1 month before, Niti Aayog has published a very comprehensive report on reimagining manufacturing ecosystem. It's a wonderful report where it has given a lot of recommendations as to what we should do to promote manufacturing sector in the years to come. Reimagining manufacturing sector. If I could quote one important recommendation from that particular report, have you heard of something called a servicification of manufacturing? सुना है आपने? Servicification of manufacturing. Niti Aayog has said in years to come, we have to focus on servicification of manufacturing, which means integration of services into manufacturing. How can services be integrated into manufacturing? Number one, more services can be used as inputs within the manufacturing. What kind of services can be used as inputs? IT support or accounting. We can use IT support, accounting, finance, business support. All these must be integrated. So while you produce something, while producing itself, we have to use more of services. That's the first thing. Second, bundle the goods with services. Now this is a very interesting thing. Bundling what? Goods with services. When you sell a particular commodity, that commodity should be bundled with services. Best example which I can think of right now is, think of a modern day car. If you purchase a modern day car, it's actually a car. It's actually a goods. But that car cannot run unless it is supported by what? Services. What kind of services? No, it's not talking about regular services. I'm saying bundling goods with services means when you sell a goods, right? In that goods itself, the services are incorporated, not after sales. Yes. So if you say a modern day car, like Tesla, can I say it is not just an engineering marvel? Apart from being an engineering marvel, it is also a marvel in terms of your services. Getting it? In modern day cars also, let's say, you have this cars which provide you with regular updates as to when should you go for, servicing of the car. It gives you updates as to when the fuel is running out and you have to get the fueling done. It gives you real-time basis of how much fuel is left. All of this is what? Service. Integration of services into manufacturing. So what are we doing in servicification of manufacturing is, we are using our strength. हमारा strength क्या है? Services. That we are integrating with our weakness. Our weakness क्या है? Manufacturing. Service plus manufacturing. Clear? Everyone? Yes, I was coming to that. Good that you mentioned. Raghuram Rajan has highlighted this servicification of manufacturing by giving an example of lens cart. He calls this lens cart as a service-led manufacturing. If you want to buy a lens cart ka frame, right? What you do? If you want to buy a frame, you walk into a lens cart ka retail store. After walking into a lens cart retail store, you try out different frames. After trying out different frames, you choose a frame which is best suited for you. Then what you do is you place an order. And based upon the order that you place, they make a customized frame for you. It's a classical case of service leading the manufacturing sector. I hope it's clear. So this is what we should do. Yeah. Service-led manufacturing, where service sector is taking forward the manufacturing sector. All the value-added services which are provided for manufacturing can be incorporated here. Is that clear? Okay. So what I've done in my PPT is I've just highlighted all the achievements, success. I'll share it with you. एक बार देख लेना, ठीक है? If you look at this question, Raghuram Rajan has written a book. Yes. Breaking the Mold. In his book, he has highlighted that this is the exact statement. He says, manufacturing ladder is hard to climb for India. He says, rather than focusing on manufacturing sector right now, India should instead focus on its strength. The strength for which he says is service. Do you agree with his views? It's a classical debate of manufacturing versus services. कि इंडिया का एस्केप मोड क्या होना चाहिए, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और सर्विसेज? Okay, first tell me this point. Why do you think manufacturing ladder is hard to climb for India. क्यों लगता है आपको it's difficult for us to promote manufacturing sector now? Very good. Intense global competition. Can you give me one country from which we are facing intense competition? He says China. I'll just tell you about this. This year's economic survey has made a statement. In that statement, economic survey says, in an extended war of production, I repeat, in an extended war of production, all the countries together cannot defeat China alone. सारे countries मिलके China को defeat नहीं कर सकते in manufacturing. And no country has seen that kind of dominance in manufacturing since. First time it was Industrial Revolution. That time, which country was there? UK. After that, US, sometime during the Second World War. And this is the third time that such a country is having such kind of dominance. So, he says, he uses this word, there is no room for second China. He says, why are we trying to become like China? Why should we replicate someone? Let's chart our own path. That's why the book is titled as what? Breaking the mold. Why should we follow what everyone is doing? Let's have our own path. That's the reason number one, he says, ki why it is difficult to climb. Second, anyone? Huh, good. Good. And that is already taken. My second point I'm asking. Okay, now. Yes, good. He says, now what we are witnessing is, we are witnessing the cases of friend shoring and near shoring. US based companies will go to Mexico, or US based companies will go to some friendly countries. India might not capitalize on this. And third, and very important, he says, India unfortunately is placed in a kind of a middle now, where if we try to compete, or if we try to produce low value goods क्या हो सकता है? Textile हो सकता है, leather हो सकता है. In terms of production of low value goods, we can never compete with countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam. उसके साथ तो compete नहीं कर सकते हैं. What else we can focus on manufacturing probably? We can focus on high value goods. But problem is, if you are focusing on high value goods, with which countries we cannot focus, which cannot compete? China, or best example here is Taiwan. If you are focusing too much on this, we cannot compete with smaller economies. For larger economies also, we cannot focus. So he says that manufacturing ladder is hard to climb. So we have to shift towards the services sector. Do you agree with his views? So he says continue to focus on services. Why get back to manufacturing? Why manufacturing is essential? Good. One is to become, like she rightly mentions, we have to become Atmanirbhar in critical technologies. Second, I'm looking at the most important point. Why India needs manufacturing? It's like asking you, that's the most important. We need manufacturing because the manufacturing sector has a potential to create large number of jobs. Manufacturing sector can make us more Atmanirbhar. And we will become less vulnerable to external shocks. ठीक है everyone? You can add this that we also need manufacturing for clean energy transition. Example of that would be electric vehicles, solar power, solar panel cells. Supply chain vulnerabilities are highlighted, less vulnerable. Okay, so one thing is when you're trying to say that he is wrong or you don't agree with his views, one point you have to say कि no, India should not give up manufacturing. Why India should not give up manufacturing? Those points. But why India should not excessively focus on services? उसका क्या points होगा आपका? If they ask you why we should not focus too much only on services, क्या problems है उसका? I think the most important point is employment elasticity is very less. It contributes 55% to the GDP, but employs only 30% of the people. That is first point. Anyone else? Why is service sector led growth? Employment elasticity. It's a threat of AI. Okay, I take it. No, I'm saying why we should not focus only on services, which means the problems in the service sector. Okay. The second most important point which you could highlight here is, it is said that if you have service-led growth, it is unsustainable in the long run. Why do you think it is unsustainable? Apart from that, which we have already said, why do you think? Which is good, but I'm not bringing that concept. Why do you think service-led growth is unsustainable? Okay, good. But that is quite a limited view, no? I want a very broad-based view. Socho. The problem with the service sector, I'll tell you, the biggest problem with service sector is service sector can actually lead to more inequalities. Can I say it's more of unbalanced growth, no? Rather than having a balanced growth, it is a unbalanced growth. It's like saying that only one sector is growing and other sectors have remained same. If other sectors remain same and only one sector grows, this is not sustainable in the long run. Example of which is, let's say people are employed in the IT industry, IT and BPO. What will happen to their income level? Their income level will increase. अगर उनका income level बढ़ेगा तो what will happen to demand for goods and services? Increases. But what are they demanding for? They are demanding for, let's say, manufacturing products. They are demanding for agriculture products. Demand supply mismatch हो जाएगा. If the demand supply mismatch happens, means two problems will arise. One is a problem of inflation, and the other problem is if you are not having domestic production, what happens to imports? Imports will increase, जिससे हमारा trade account, current account deficit will increase. This is a point which has been put forward by IMF. Why service-led growth is unsustainable. Other points you can, what you said, it's can write. So when we say debate about manufacturing and services, India needs manufacturing. The service sector led. Service, yeah. Skewed demand, yeah. So what should India do? Should we focus on manufacturing or services, sir? One solution, like I already said, we should integrate the both, है ना? Integrate the both, which is manufacturing and services. And उसके लिए हम, I told you a word. What is that word? One word is, I told you, servicification of manufacturing. That is what you have to quote, right? Second, what else can you think of? Okay, here there's a statement. The statement is saying the debate should not be about manufacturing versus services. The debate is not about manufacturing versus services. The debate should be about low productivity versus high productivity sectors. Whenever we say manufacturing versus services, it's wrong to assume manufacturing and services as one single homogeneous group. It is wrong. Can I say manufacturing is a heterogeneous group, which includes manufacturing of high value products and low value products? Services is also not homogeneous. Services is heterogeneous. Like when I say services में क्या क्या include होता है? IT sector, we have finance sector, you have tourism sector, you have travel, you have retail. There's so many sectors. So it's wrong to say कि service is one homogeneous. So the debate should never be about manufacturing versus services. Rather, the debate should be low productivity versus high productivity, which means within manufacturing, where we should focus upon high productivity sectors. Within services, if I could ask you which is most high productivity sector? IT is one, finance is one, right? These are the sectors where we should focus more upon. ठीक है? So that should be our way forward. The debate should never be about whether India should focus on manufacturing or services. The debate should be about within manufacturing, which subsectors we should focus upon, and within services, which subsectors should we focus upon. That's a much better debate. I hope you understood the point of view. You meant to say the GVC chain, right? GVC smile curve wala. हाँ. Within the GVC also we can focus on the high value segments, not on the low value. Like mere assembly we should not focus upon. Clear? So everyone? Okay. Look at this question. There has been paradigm shift in India's industrial policy from state-centric licensing to performance-linked incentive. Do you think such a shift would enable India to promote globally competitive manufacturing sector? It says what kind of incentives? Performance-linked incentives. Can you give me one example of performance-linked incentive that we're giving to industries? Best example is, yes. Best example is PLI. So the question it is asking you, do you think PLI or similar schemes will enable India to become globally competitive? This year mains, you had the same question. Mains 2025, you know that question. What are the concerns with PLI and how PLI should be redesigned? क्या लिखा उस question में? Come again, what is that? Huh. Okay, so you mean to say it should be continued to be given? Okay. Based upon the performance. Yes. Anyone? याद है क्या लिखा था मेंस में? हाँ. तो याद है वो मेरा वाला कंटेंट? हाँ हाँ. तो क्या है क्रिटिसिज्म? वो गुड. हाँ फाइल में है, तो पढ़ लेना. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दैट इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. आई जस्ट टेल यू व्हाट performance linked incentive critical analysis quickly. I'll give the detailed handout. But when you see performance linked incentive, what are we doing is we are giving incentives to the companies based upon what is the value of their sale of a particular product. Think like an iPhone. Foxconn is selling iPhone in India at $100. 6 to 7% of the value of iPhone we will give as an incentive to Foxconn. That is what is PLI. Why are we giving it? The philosophy is very simple. The philosophy that why we are giving incentives is we think that in India there are a lot of structural constraints in manufacturing sector. Structural constraints like land acquisition, labor laws, they are structural constraints. Because of this structural constraint, the cost of manufacturing is higher. How do you offset the higher manufacturing cost? By giving incentives and reap the benefit of China plus one strategy. The problem is when we are giving incentives, the incentives based upon the value of sales. It is not based upon the value addition. When I say value addition, Foxconn company might be importing the components of iPhone at $95 and then selling the iPhone at $100. How much value addition is doing? Just $5. At the end of which, how much incentive we might give? $6. Problem क्या हो सकता है यहाँ पे? The amount of incentive that we are giving might be more than the value addition itself. I hope it's clear. So incentive जो होगा, on what basis do you think it should be given? It should be based upon how much of technology you're using, how much of value addition you're doing, and more importantly, which sector you're doing value addition. Right now, which sector are you focusing more on? Semiconductors, electric batteries. So depending upon the criticality of the sector, the incentives should be higher. It should not be one size fits all approach. कि सारे sectors के लिए हम same incentive देंगे. That is what should be your point of view. यहाँ तक clear है everyone? Okay. In the handout, I have just provided, I'll just show you here. These are the labor codes. I would want you guys to quickly have a look at it. एक बार देख लेना labor codes. I hope this is the biggest debate right now. For sure you'll get a question on this. Labor codes. Which one? What is that? I'll discuss that. So what I've done with respect to labor code, what are the present problems, how the labor code is addressing those problems, and what are the lingering concerns. Just have a look. What do you mean by gratuity? Not retirement. Who should have completed at least 5 years? Someone who completes at least 5 years at the time of leaving the organization, not necessarily retirement. At the time of leaving organization, that person will be paid a lump sum amount in reward for his loyalty to the organization. So can you see the gratuity benefits right now to the contractual workers and people who are employed for a fixed term? That benefit is given only after how many years? 5 years. Why is it a problem? प्रॉब्लम में लिखा है मैंने, ये प्रॉब्लम क्यों है? Yeah, exactly. You're giving the benefit after 5 years, but these people, they don't serve for 5 years. They will serve only for 1 or 2 years. It means they never get the benefit of gratuity. तो अभी हमने क्या किया उसका? Gratuity benefits are extended to contract and fixed term employees after how many years? 1 year. This is a good thing. Then you can see, I hope you must have heard of for gig workers and platform workers, we have extended social security benefits. Okay. If I could tell you the concern, biggest concern, government says that we have now provided for universal social protection for the unorganized workers. The problem right now is employee provident fund and employee pension scheme. These two funds, they provide social security benefits only to the workers, only in those cases where industries are employing how many workers? More than 20 workers. That has continued to remain same only. It means for the enterprises hiring less than 20 workers, even now there is no social security benefit. इसमें कोई डाउट है? हाँ. I'll just show you all the four one by one. ये वाला देखो, everyone. Okay. When you see this, occupational safety, health and working conditions, this is a separate code. Earlier what used to happen, whenever you talk about health, safety and working conditions, these standards were laid on only for certain selected sectors. What are those selected sectors? It was applicable to factories, mines, dock workers, etc. It is not applicable to all the sectors. And even within those sectors, it was applicable to only those enterprises who are hiring workers above a certain threshold level. Exclusionary tha. Then there used to be a physical inspection by inspectors. Inspectors used to physically inspect the premises, which used to impose opportunity cost as well as the monetary cost. Opportunity cost because entrepreneur would be mostly focusing on ensuring that rules and regulations are followed. Thus, entrepreneur will not be able to focus on expanding the business of the company. Opportunity cost. Monetary cost because the penalties were very high. Now what we have done? Provision for inspector cum facilitator. The nomenclature has got changed. Why are we calling him as a facilitator now? Is because this person will also inform, advise the enterprises as to how the rules and regulations must be followed. Earlier was more of enforcer. Now this is more of a facilitator. Now we will not undertake regular inspection. Instead of undertaking regular inspection, what we'll do is we'll undertake web-based randomized inspection. Just like how the ITR returns are randomly, examined, just like that, randomized inspections are going to take place. And all the offenses have now got decriminalized. You must have heard that trade unions have raised a lot of issues over this. This is that issue. Can you see? Poor enforcement of safety standards. ठीक है? Just another 2-3 minutes. Look at this. ये तो पढ़ा होगा आपने, lack of flexibility. So for sure, UPS in the interview panel, 2 topics are important. One is the recent labor reforms, and the other one is GST reforms 2.0. Even for GST reforms 2.0, I have prepared a same table. कि पहले क्या problem थे, what reforms we have brought about, and what are the concerns lingering in spite of GST reforms 2.2. Those 3 columns you have. Look at this. Code on wages. Look at the last point there. Lower contribution to social security benefits. Anyone can explain what is this? Huh? Good. Basic pay, DA and HRA, then travel allowance and so on. Then basic pay and DA. Yes, by making the basic pay and DA very small and giving more money in the form of another allowances, they reduce their social security contribution. How much social security contribution they are required to make, by the way? EPF mein 12%. 12%. So 12% of basic pay and DA. So that they basic pay and DA, they deliberately used to keep it lower and give more money in the form of travel allowance, HRA and so on. So now what we have done, okay, now what we have said is why the social security benefits might increase is because one important change has taken place, which might be asked. That important change is now the government has said basic pay plus DA, DNS allowance, both should be at least 50% of the total wages. At least 50%. If they make it at least 50%, so what will happen to social security contributions? They are likely to increase. Let's say a employee, उसका salary 1 lakh था. Basic pay plus DA, let's say it is coming out to be rupees 20,000 and remaining 80,000 was in the form of allowances. So employer used to pay 12% of how much rupees? 20,000. That is what they used to pay. Now, how much they have to pay now? 12% of, I said at least 50%. 12% of how much? 50,000. Clear? But why are the workers not happy? वो तो खुश होना चाहिए ना कि हमको ज्यादा सोशल सिक्योरिटी कंट्रीब्यूशन मिल रहा है. They also have to contribute to the EPF. And how much is their contribution? 12%. Imagine I'm an employee. If my salary structure was like this, I as an employee, I used to pay 12% of 20,000 towards the EPF. The remaining money, whatever was remaining, this used to be my take home salary. Now I have to contribute how much? 12% of rupees 50,000. My EPF contribution has increased. So what will happen to my take home salary? Reduce. That's the biggest concern. That is why employees are not happy about it. So they are more concerned कि हाथ में कितना पैसा आएगा. More not concerned कि the corpus is being built. Is that clear? Okay. So like I said, whatever topics are there, I will share a detailed handout on that with my responses. I will add to that number 1, budget wala announcement. Second, the economic survey recommendations, all of that. And also what you should do, you must have already prepared for economy in the mains. And I showed you the nature of questions. It's mostly the same thing, but you must have your opinion on that. Like I showed you a question on performance linked incentive. It is nothing but your mains answer. जो आपको recall नहीं हो we are not able to recall. Just go back, revise it, that will be done. ठीक है? Any specific doubt apart from this? हाँ, I'll just speak to the management. I'll let you know. If you get time, what you can do, if you get time, if your interview is at a later stage, one paper that you can read is Business Line. If you see, Economic Times is a good paper, but the problem is Economic Times is heavily leaning towards the overall business. It's more private sector. Business Line is more oriented towards the government policies. Mint is also good. But if I compare, if you have been regularly following Mint, go ahead with that. But these two papers are good. I regularly follow both, but between these two, I find Business Line to be better in terms of analysis of government policies. A Business Line focuses a lot on agriculture, which Mint does not. Mint generally focuses on non-agriculture sectors. You must have seen that. You know? Any other specific doubt? Okay. Lastly, I'll just share my number, mail ID. If anyone wants to reach out to me at any point of time for any queries, feel free. This is my number. And this is my mail ID. 890-435-2991 and baswa.u@flavent.com. And go back and revise all your mains notes now. अभी काम में आएगा वो, ठीक है? Do not think कि उसका काम चला हो गया. Fine. चलो. All the best. Do well. It was wonderful taking your class. Do well. All the best. And let me know how was the interview later. ठीक है? Thank you.